Welcome back to another episode here on the Inkwell Lounge. I'm your host, Chris, aka Questing for Lore. And in this week's episode, I got a chance to sit down with one of the more well known members of Team Malestrom and competitive player, Logan, who you might know better as Xenulous. So he and I talked a little bit about what brought him to the game, how he approaches the competitive side, and even some ideas about what the meta might look like moving forward post rotation and an Attack of the Vine. Sound like fun? Let's get to it. Well, hey, Logan, how's it going?
Oh, not bad. It's been a pretty restful week so far. What about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. We've actually got some family coming in tomorrow, so our week has been a little hectic, unfortunately. But
Making sure you
I'm
get the
glad.
house all clean and everything all squared away.
Yeah, I mean, in the room I record in down here is our guest room, and so basically, as soon as we're done here, I have to like put everything up to be able to like make it more presentable and everything. So yeah, and fortunately, it's one of those things like we here in Northwest Montana, we live in an area that's like really pretty, and we've got a national park, and during the winter we've got a ski mountain and all that. So a lot of our family is really keen on coming to visit, which is great, but but then it also means we're cycling through family members, during the time. So
Just come in. Never mind the Volcana memorabilia in the background.
I know, right? Like this stuff back behind me, I'm gonna be like, okay, don't touch that stuff. Just leave it there.
You
Maybe
don't
I'll put a
understand how
sheet
important
over
this
it.
is to me.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, fortunately, these are all empty, all the trove boxes, so I don't have to worry quite so much. All my cards are upstairs. So, but
Well, fantastic organizing.
well, well, thanks for joining me. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. I know we kind of went back and forth on timing and everything, but yeah, I've been really looking forward to getting to talk to you for a while now. Obviously you've been on Let's Talk Lorcana for forever now, basically. As kind of a co-host or just kind of a guest. Hop it in there, but. So I'm really curious. One of the first things I like to do is kind of get the background of the person that I'm talking to. Whether Lorcana is your first TCG or if there's other ones that you played in the past, how you kind of found out about the game. Um, you know, I guess let's get started there.
Sure. So it's not my first TCG. My first TCG that I really dove into was the old World of Warcraft physical card game.
Okay.
I was in college at the time. My friends and I were already going to a local game store to play Dungeons and Dragons just because they had a play space there.
Mm-hmm.
And one week, somebody showed up and they had a learn to play the game kit for the two starter decks. Let's play it, and instantly fell in love. Me and my friends were really big World of Warcraft fans forever. I've sank entirely too many hours of my life into that game, done
I
insane achievements.
think a lot of us have. Yes. Yeah.
Um, so IP was immediately something I was drawn to, and weirdly enough, it plays almost identically to what Lorcana feels like today.
Hmm.
You had a resource system that was the same. Cards with a symbol could be used as a resource. Cards with not that symbol could not be used as a resource. So deck building was kind of the same.
Okay.
Then Blizzard decided they wanted to create Hearthstone.
Yeah.
In making Hearthstone, they discontinued the physical TCG. I was a part of the petition, thousands of us signed to try to get them to continue the physical TCG, but obviously, here we are now, 2026. That's not even remotely a thing. So Hearthstone came out, and I was a little upset for a long time. For the first like 2 or 3 months, I refused to play it flat out because I was like, I have all like there was a lot of cards when Hearthstone first came out that just reused art assets from the physical TCG.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I would see this card art, and I'm like, I already own that. Like, why would I play a game that would force me to, either because it was monetized early back in the day. Obviously, it was a set one thing, so there were so few cards. But I was like, why would I go and spend my time playing a game, possibly spend more money when I own it? Like, it's right here. Obviously, it's different because the games are the Hearthstone and the physical TCG played very differently. But after a couple of months, my brother was playing it, and he's like, "Hey, this game's actually really good. The mechanics are cool." So I broke down, played that, and was also really really competitive. Uh, Playing that, trying out for the just an online ladder grinder, and did a few major events and things like that. But as far as Lorcana, it was actually my cousin that discovered it before I did. He messaged me just because he and I play a lot of the similar video games. Hadn't really played TCGs. He wasn't really into the WoW physical TCG or Hearthstone very much, but he was like, Disney's making a card game. There's no way this isn't going to be cool. Like, we're going to have to get in on
Yeah.
it. And I saw the first artworks of it because, initially I was like, hey, okay, I've been there, done that. Don't know if I'm really invested in playing another physical TCG. And then I saw the first artworks. I think it was the first Captain Hook, the first Winnie the Pooh, and then the Maleficent Dragon. And
Hmm.
after I saw just the artwork for the game alone, I was like, okay, well, I'm sold. Like, however the game ends up playing, I think it looks so attractive just from an artwork perspective that I can't not play the game. I was
Yeah.
also a really big Disney kid. I grew up with all the Disney movies, would take the yearly trip to Disney World, um, had all of the books and everything. So the IP is, again, that thing that really stuck out to me.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people. They're basically like, I wasn't a TCG player before, but then I heard about it being a Disney thing, and I kind of transitioned over from being a huge Disney fan to like, oh, okay, this looks interesting. I'll give it a shot. And now they're like completely hooked on it. They're all in on like buying tons of it each set and really, really trying to figure out the competitive play and everything. Which, before they were just like, oh yeah, I'm just a Disney fan, So it's cool the way that like brings people into the game, because it's got that recognizable Disney background and the IP and everything. And especially with more recent sets with some of the Pixar stuff, a lot more people are getting more invested in it because it's a lot of stuff that they like. It's not like the old Disney stuff that a lot of the kind of some of the earlier sets kind of leaned more on some of that. But it's really cool to see a lot of the newer sets bringing in some of the more recent movies and everything, especially with like Turning Red that came out, what, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. So,
Oh yeah, that's something that like Liam talks about all the time. Is Turning Red's actually one of his favorite Disney movies.
yeah.
For me, Toy Story is my favorite Disney movie. It's either that or Treasure Planet. So I already got my fix in set one when John Silver was immediately in the game. So I was like, okay, well, we're gonna see more relevant or maybe some what people would consider deep cuts of Disney because it had all the classic Disney characters, but then the splash of new. Like the John Silver was kind of the big one. As far as cards to play, set one, John Silver was my favorite card to actually play and try to make work.
Mhm.
But I've told everybody since Toy Story was announced, I was like, if you want a Toy Story Enchanted or alternate art or anything, if you can get it at a reasonable price early, you should, because
Yeah.
these are the cards that are going to escalate in price. These are the ones that, I mean, I was very, very young when the first Toy Story came out. Um, I'm only 32 now, but the first Toy Story movie was the first movie I saw in person in theaters.
Okay.
Um, I don't really remember seeing the movie because I was such a young lad, but
Yeah.
that was the very first movie I was taken to the theaters to see. So I guess it just kind of has that resonance with me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think it was, I want to say it was J Bomb that I was talking to. He kind of had the same kind of perspective. Like, he saw the first movie and it was like, about Andy being a little kid and, kind of like he identified with that. And then as it progressed through, Andy getting older and, Bonnie and, all the other characters kind of coming in, it was like, he was like, it just kind of like coincided with my arc in life. And so it really like every single one that came out, he totally identified with it. Which is really cool with these like longer running franchises. You can kind of like pick and choose, and and so you get some people that are like they're younger, they watch The Incredibles, and they're like, oh yeah, I totally identify with the kids and the frustrations that they're having. And then parents, once you get to be parents, you watch it again, and you're like, oh, I get why they're so upset about about this kind of thing. So it's it's cool how even the same movies can kind of, or same IP, I guess, not just movies, but can appeal to different audiences, and having that reflected in the game is really cool because you make that, that mental connection. uh, so it's always fun. I enjoy talking to people and kind of getting their favorite cards and their favorite IP and everything. So I'm curious, so you mentioned Treasure Planet and, some of the Pixar stuff. Um, so outside of that, is there anything that has been in the first couple of sets? Now we're in 13 now.
Set
Um,
13,
I mean, it's insane how fast it's gone, really. Um,
honestly.
but is there anything that's kind of stood out to you, like any franchise that you've seen in there that maybe is not one of those two, but is something that you would like to see potentially in future sets as well?
So like my big wishes for the game were more Treasure Planet cards, and
Okay.
we got those earlier. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
want to say I think it was set 3. We got the Jim Hawkins and the ship, the location. RLS Legacy is what it was. But
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
after that, my biggest want was the Black Cauldron. That was a
Okay.
movie that I watched when I was younger. Like we had the VHS tape of it. So to see the last few sets, I think. Oh shoot, when was the first one? Was it Fabled?
I
No,
think it
it was the set
was
after Fabled.
no, it was Whispers, I think. Yeah, when they
Was it
first brought
Whispers?
it in, I think.
It's again, time's flown
I
so
know,
quickly.
right? It's crazy.
But like that was my biggest ask to have in the game. I was like, we're seeing that they're not afraid to do some darker artwork, right? You can
Hmm.
even look at set 1 to Ka of the like the really gritty, just fire aspect of Taka when it just had that skewed image of it, right? Um, so that kind of gave me the idea of okay, so they're willing to go a little bit edgier with some of the artworks. It's not always going to be fun, cutesy, whatever. Um, so then I was proven right when they put in all of the Black Cauldron cards. They even had the Cauldron Born, just the straight
Hmm.
skeletons, because I was always curious of all the characters, how are they going to present the Horned King to us in a way that's not like either overly cartoony or straight from the movie side where there's some kind of like gruesome pictures of him throughout the film. And I think they struck a really good balance. I think it's a caricature of him where it still looks like, kind of a cartoony vibe of it, but they still kind of capture what the Horned King is. I think the Legendary of this set does a really good job of, as far as artwork goes, of what that is. Um, and now we're seeing things even above that. We're seeing all the Headless Horseman art do
Yeah.
really well. Spooky Sight was another one that had that just tied in like the big three of the classic um, Donald, Mickey, and Goofy. Because you can go back and watch the old, like I was a big just old Disney cartoon fan, so you can go see their artworks where Mickey doesn't actually have round eyes; he always just has like the straight
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
Um, that just and I don't know. There's something about that version of Mickey that kind of resonates with me. It makes me happy. So seeing it on Spooky Sight, I still have the Enchanted, but then
Nice.
like adding the Headless Horseman on that, just having that as that little bit of a catch on it, like because he's not. I know he's in like the actual original artwork of it, not the Enchanted one, but the way they framed it and just made it look so cool. Um, it's something Liam and I nerd out about a lot is how much equity this game I think is going to keep the longer the years keep rolling because first of all Disney fans are insanely loyal.
Yeah.
um I mean, I'm talking to me, it's somebody who grew up with Disney in the household and continue to be that as an adult. But people really, really want alternate arts and alternate versions of characters. Like you see people cosplaying different levels of these characters
Hmm.
at many different events. So now we're seeing these characters brought to life in a way that they have not ever in the history of these characters through these cards. So the more exclusive versions of these things that we're going to get, I think, are just going to hold value forever, if not grow in value.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about the game is that it's not just like, because you've seen games in the past where it's just like, oh, they took a screenshot of the character or something and just put it on the card. But to be able to have a game where it's basically entirely original art, especially Disney related, but it's entirely this, and they branch out into Floodborn and Dreamborn, and it's not just like, oh, we're just going to put a picture of Mickey on a card and it's going to be good. The work that they put into this and all the artists that they get involved in this stuff is just, it's absolutely mind boggling when you start looking back. Like, I've looked on the Mushi Report site and looked at the list of artists, and it's huge. When you actually look at it and really think about all the work that's been put into this. It's really easy to just like, oh, let's open the cards. They all kind of look a little similar. They've got the same characters and stuff, but when you really dig into it, and especially when you look across the cards from a certain artist, you can definitely tell like they have a style, especially when
Oh, for
you
sure.
go to like a DLC or something and they have the artist there signing it. You get a couple of the cards and you're like, oh, okay, I see it now.
It's like, I see why you keep on getting asked back.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, and there's so many of them that have so many cards. It's really cool, and you get some that like especially at DLCs where they have the signings, you can always tell the ones that people like the most because they have the longest lines for the signatures. But yeah, we've
Most of the
definitely
times it's the
had.
ones that have the playable cards, but
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. That does help. Yes, yeah. But you get some of them that like they'll do the card art and then they'll do a playmat, that's like Christian Romero, I think what was the one that he did? I forget the Jafar playmat. I kind
I
of
think
forget.
so.
Yeah. Um but you see people bringing up the playmats, to get signed and everything, and it's got the extended art, and it's just really cool to see how they apply that, and how that like all of the art they create for these cards is actually, I'm sure it's actually wider than just what's limited to the card, um but yeah, it's really impressive. I have the utmost respect for all these people that try to put this stuff together, and I don't know if the art comes first, if the card comes first. I don't know how exactly that process works, but Liam would probably have a little bit more insight on that. But I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Have y'all talked about that very much, or?
Liam has artists memorized down to a T,
Yeah.
knows like their card pool only like off the top of his head. He's an insane index for anything Disney Lorcana art related. So any question that you could probably think of, we've probably either hashed out in a limited way or had like the late night hours conversation of like, yeah, isn't this really cool?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, speaking of the show, um, we kind of talked a little bit before we started recording about it, but I'm curious how you went from basically being a guest to like the co-host of the show. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, the story is not really fantastic. So every time Liam has on a guest, he always ends the night or ends the segment of, if you have something else you'd like to talk about, just let me know and we'll get you back on. Well, I at the time was more or less at a work from home job.
Mm.
So most Monday nights I was just kind of free. So I was already paying attention to the Lumineers and talking anyway, but I've been very active in the Lorcana community for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I just continue to just keep up on everything. So there would be weeks that would go by sometimes, and he might be busy, or if he was casting a DLC, if he was somewhere else in the world doing whatever, he would text me and he'd be like, "Hey, this event went on. Do you have any knowledge about it? What's going on?" Or I would just hit him up and be like, "Hey, so this was going on. If you need somebody to talk about it, let me know." Um, and then his wife was the co-host for a little while.
Yep.
She decided to step back just because life gets busier. Your kids get a little bit older. They just had another little one, um, and so when that happened, he reached out to me and he was like, "Well, I need a co-host. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you come on and just be a part of it." And yeah, now every Monday night, that's what I do.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool that you guys have been so consistent with it. I know, like you said, there's sometimes that, like it's a DLC is coming up and it's like, oh, there's no show this week. But I know, speaking from my own perspective, it's nice to have that touch point every week, even if it's just like, hey, let's get on and let's talk to like two people, and it's a relatively, short show. But it's just nice to have that consistency. And I think with on the like the official Ravensburger side, for a long time there, we didn't have anything. They would send out just like random tweets or random emails or something. But as soon as they started doing the consistent lore casts, it provides that kind of like anchor for the community. It's like, okay, every Monday night we can watch, Logan and Liam, and then every Thursday we can have our lore cast. And I think that's such a key thing for a lot of the content creation out there, is to have that predictability and be able to have that where people, you know, it's funny, I liken it to, and this kind of dates me a little bit, but when you would like, oh, my show's on, for the week. And so you would go, it's like Tuesday nights, I would always go turn on, MacGyver or something like that. And you would
No, I'm
watch
old
your
enough to
show.
remember, man.
Okay, there you go.
I'm old enough to
But
remember. I had the the after school specials, or oh
yeah,
look, it's Wednesday night. This is when this show comes on. I've got to be.
yep. Yep, definitely. Yeah, same kind of thing. And it's nice to have that kind of consistency. And I appreciate all the work that y'all put in on it. I know it's not easy every single week to get out there, organize the guests, try to worry, think through the topics of the week and everything. I know it's a lot of work behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see, but I just want to let you know I appreciate the work that y'all put in on it. So,
I appreciate it. There are definitely some Monday nights where we like message each other and it's like, "Do you even really want to go do it?" And we're like, "I'm so tired. I don't
mhm.
like," especially after big event weekends, right?
Oh
There have
yeah.
been many Mondays after DLCs where we've been like, "I'm so burnt. Like, do we even do it?" And then those end up always being the best. Ironically enough, I want to say the after DLCs or the after big events, we tend to get the most viewers, tend to get the most questions or chat activity, or have like a guest on that just ends up having a fantastic conversation. Um, so even though like we're tired and we, amongst ourselves are like, oh, man, we could just what's one Monday, man? Like we could
Yeah.
just what's one? We could skip one. It's fine. Um, we try not to only skip on big events, or I've missed if I'm like have a flight delay and I'm sleeping in the airport. But other than that, it genuinely is a joy, because even if it is difficult or we don't feel like it afterwards, the community always makes up for whatever feelings of negativity we may have, or just remind us, no, this is like kind of the best part of the week sometimes for us.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and there's something to be said for just kind of hanging out and talking to people. And I did for a little while. We did a live stream, the ice cream social stuff, um, and basically, we just got together on like a Thursday night and just talked, and it was nice. It was always kind of like this highlight of the week, at least for me, to be able to just sit down and talk to people. And we would talk a little bit about what happened during the week, but then it like devolved into random conversations about stuff, and it was just fun, to get to hang out with people that you all share this love for this game, and know that that's kind of like that foundation. Y'all have your love for it, and to be able to put in the time to do the show. But it also, it brings in everybody else, all the people in the chat, all the people that watch the replays and everything, that do love the game, and it helps build up that community, and that weekly kind of reinforcement, I guess, for people that need it to be like, oh yeah, yeah, I do love this game, and all these other people love this game too.
No, for sure. I mean, there have been even on like the hard weeks or times in my life where there have been downs. Like Monday night's always been the, well, you know what? At least I get to sit down and talk with Liam and
Yeah.
have just a decompressed couple of hours of, this is all we get to, this is all that really gets to exist in this couple of hours, and that's really nice.
Yep. Yep, definitely. Yep. Well, so you talked a little bit about competitive events and how it impacts the show. I know that piece of your Lorcana journey. No, that's not the right word. But you're huge on the competitive side of the game. I think you're going to the D23 CCQ here pretty
Yep.
soon. Yep. Okay, cool. But okay, I want you to brag a little bit about yourself. So go ahead and tell me, you know, how far you've made it on certain DLCs, any kind of other competitive events as well. I'm really curious, because a lot of the people I talk to, I kind of get like a partial picture of how they've done in the past. But yeah, go ahead and brag on yourself a little bit there.
Sure. Most recently, Milwaukee, I made day two of that DLC, was one win short of making top cut. The Brazil DLC, again, day two, one win short of making top cut. The Green Bay CCQ, I made top three, um, was facing against Tiago on the opposite side of bracket.
Yeah.
And the gentleman on the other side of the bracket, he already had a Continentals invite and he won, so he was in the finals. So that was where Tiago and I were playing for a Continentals invite.
Yeah.
Went to game three and he ended up getting it there. Um, and then those are just the biggest placements recently. Obviously, smaller events like Charlie's. I've topped
Mhm.
Charlie's day one, day two, multiple times. Um, have won multiple set champs. Have um, topped a few PPG events, won a PPG qualifier, um, top cut. Like this season, it kind of has been the story of like, oh, I'm just one win away from top cut at
Yeah.
most events I go to.
Yeah.
I want to say the last three events I've been to, three to four, I've been one win away from top cut. Take the Texas PPG event this past CCQ, Indianapolis. The Indianapolis DLC. Like
Mhm.
that's just kind of been the story of the back half of my season two.
Okay. All right. So it's pretty clear you love the competitive aspect of the game. I'm curious why. Like, was it something that kind of carried over from the previous TCGs that you kind of brought that competitive aspect with you, or was it something that like you started with Lorcana and you were like, okay, I'm going to go all in on the competitive side?
No, so even in the old World of Warcraft physical TCG and Hearthstone, I was very competitive.
Hmm.
I wanted to, I was winning weeklies in my uh, World of Warcraft locals. Went to I guess what you call it, nationals. Went to the nationals for that game. Same thing in Hearthstone. I would grind until I was high legend in the ladder system there. Went to a few actual tournament events for that. Never won any of those. Like would kind of get there and then scrub out, but
Yeah.
I was knocking at the door and always being there. But then, like I said, for the longest time, my youngest brother and I we traveled a lot for Super Smash Brothers. So
Hmm.
after I stopped doing the TCG things, I was competitive in other things. Same thing with World of Warcraft with my guilds that were playing there. We were pushing for server first. Always trying to be server first DPS in my class and do things like that. So most games or anything I've played, I've always strived to be as good as I can be, or take it to the next level of competitive events and playing. So Lorcana just kind of naturally fit in that line of things I was already doing, just kind of being competitive by nature.
Okay. All right. Yeah, fair enough. I know there's a lot of people that, that's what they do, right? They get into the game, they get into the competitive side, they really like try to make it as far as possible and really improve their skills on that side. But I love that the game also embraces kind of the casual players as well. And even like some of the people I talk to, they're really big on the competitive side, but they still enjoy, the theme deck nights. It's not like it's either or, fortunately. So,
No,
um,
like I've always been very vocal about the fact that if there's something you can do to enjoy the game in the way you want to, that's fine.
yeah,
I don't discourage anybody from doing that. I especially don't tell people, well, if you're not playing competitive the way I am, then
yeah,
why are you even playing? Um, if you found a way to enjoy the game, more power to you. That's fantastic.
yeah.
More people playing the game is always good. It's just for me, I want to try to be at events striving to be at the top of those events, whatever the format is, if whether it's Infinity or Core Constructed, whatever the format is, where people are being competitive and I get to kind of throw my hat in the ring and play against other people to try to show that my skills are where I want them to be. That's that's where I enjoy playing the game.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's definitely for some people and it's definitely not. So I will say that like I said, I appreciate that the game embraces both communities. It's not just driven towards competitive players and everything. So I'm curious, like when you're first starting out, like, so we have you have the D23 CCQ coming up. We also have, the nationals, that are coming up here in, I guess, less than a month, I guess. Yeah.
Like,
Um,
yeah, less than a month now.
yeah, it's crazy. It's come up so fast. So I'm curious, like, what does your process look like when you're going into these events? We've got Attack of the Vine, so you've got a little bit of a different card pool than before. Maybe compared to whatever you played in the last event that you played. But how do you approach this? Like, what do you do? Do you update current decks that you really enjoy? Do you like dive into kind of rogue stuff and try to figure out, are there any kind of interesting synergies with new cards, or what's your approach there?
So, a lot of it is just collaborating with the Maelstrom team.
Hmm.
All of us are testing constantly. With Attack of the Vine, obviously it's new rotation, so we lost a lot of things. So a lot of the archetypes that did exist and were strong just don't exist anymore. So step one was finding out, okay, what synergies still kind of work that got new tools, even though we lost a lot. So that's kind of like the starting point of what was strong before and how can we kind of take those shells and recreate them with the tools we still have. Um, then the next step is, okay, well, if we can do that, is there anything that exists now that is in the new card pool that can beat those things?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the next step. So honestly, it's a lot of theory crafting, a lot of talking with the team, a lot of going back and forth, trial and error to land on um, where a lot of us have now. And it can be as obvious as, oh, well, Eldenor does something very powerful when three characters exerted. What's the fast way we can do that? Or you can go on what Sailor and Humble do most sets, which is try to find a control variant of some sort. What's the
Hmm.
best way we can control the game, get to a board state where we can just all of a sudden take control and swing for 20 lore pretty quickly so they can't answer back. Um, I tend to be more of a tempo player over the years that I've kind of learned that about myself. So I tend to lean more into what's what's the tempo game plan that I can lean on to or create. Um, the first event for Attack of the Vine, I did bring an Eleanor deck, and again was one went away from getting into top cut of that CCQ. But
Yeah.
both my teammates, R&B and Humble, made top eight. Humble ended up winning his event, and they were playing just different archetypes than what we'd seen before.
Hmm.
R&B had brought Amethyst Steel bots. Humble had brought Amber Ruby Control, which was just a different variant of what he'd had before with new cards. And now I'm kind of leaning more to the maybe Amber Amethyst side of things, just because it's kind of the new Blurple, and
Yep.
that's kind of where I shined at the beginning of Fable, just because it felt. I mean, it's just a very tempo-oriented deck that had some control pieces, and Amber Amethyst is kind of that now. It's a very tempo oriented deck that has a lot of control pieces. You have things like Gaston, you have things like Horseman Strikes, you have Demona, so you can just create these board states that your opponents can't really deal with because your bodies are so big and you can swing down.
Hmm.
Um, so all of that to say, a lot of collaboration. I very rarely come up with something completely on my own. A lot of it is just testing with the team and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Yeah, I'm sure it's nice to have that team around you to be able to just like, I'm sure y'all have discords. I know you have a Maelstrom Discord, but I'm sure you'll have, like internal channels where you bounce these ideas off of each other. And I don't know how many people on the team are like in roughly the same area. It seems like everybody's kind of spread out pretty good.
Myself, R&B, and Humble, we are in Florida,
Okay.
but everybody else is spread out.
Yep.
Sky and Wonder are kind of close to each other, but obviously Sailor is French Canadian.
Yep.
Um, Bannable, I believe, is Carolinas, if I'm not mistaken. Kurt is near Pennsylvania, Baltimore area.
Hmm.
So very spread out for the
Okay.
most part.
Okay.
So a lot of our, like, pretty much all of our communication, even for us in Florida, is through Discord messages and team testing nights through Discord and things like that.
Nice. Yeah. So y'all do the like the webcam play testing and everything, or
Yeah,
yeah,
Humble especially. Like, if we can do paper testing, Humble especially prefers paper testing.
yeah. No, I don't blame him. I mean, back when we had the client that shall not be named, before before it got shut down, it was so easy to, just hop on and play a game and everything, but it's such a different experience to play in paper, especially in person. I think my first DLC that I went to for Atlanta, I had only ever played online. And so, to sit down across from someone and actually play the same cards and everything, it was a different experience. And it's, in my opinion, it's better, because you have like the face-to-face interaction. You're actually playing with someone. You can get that kind of feedback versus like this anonymous name that happens to be on the other end. But I feel like it's such an important aspect of the game to have that social interaction, whether it's playing one-on-one or whether it's playing multiplayer or anything like that. I think I mean, obviously it's a game, so you're playing against someone, you're trying to win, that's kind of the point. But the community and the social aspect of the game is just such a big piece of it as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, I can honestly say I wouldn't be here in life without the community aspect of Lorcana. I wouldn't be on the team I'm on. I met my fiance through Lorcana, so all those things have kind of culminated to where I am.
Nice, nice. So I'm curious if you were able to advise someone for like how to improve their competitive play side, what would be like I guess, the top three things that you would recommend to them?
Number one, get reps in paper for sure. There are a lot of people that do play online that, when it comes to the in person, you'll forget triggers or you'll
Yeah.
forget basic rules like keeping ink face up or keeping your ink exerted at the end of turn. Like, these are muscle memory things that you really need to be incorporating every day. Also, just a comfortability aspect. When you're in in-person event, if you make a little mistake, for some people that can be something that just kind of gnaws at you all day. Like, man, I made this little mistake or a dexterity error, and like, shouldn't have done that. And then just, all day, that's just that voice in the back of your head. So to eliminate that, go to your local game stores. I very
Yep.
highly recommend this. Find your local community, go support your local game stores, play there, get your practice in there, make your mistakes there. Um, even last Friday I was playing against Humble. Like, our locals here in Florida are streamed. I made a couple of little mistakes here. I tried to get back a 4 cost song for my discard with Max Goof. I tried to exert a character that I just played. Um, we all do it.
Yep.
So, but it's better to get those mistakes out in a very low stakes area like locals than in a DLC where somebody can call a judge and it might be,
Yeah.
it could be escalated to something higher than a warning. So, number one, absolutely get in, like, in person paper testing. Um, Number two, if you have the ability, rewatch games that you've played. Um, it really will teach you a lot about where your mindset was at the time versus where it could be. You'll even catch yourself making mistakes. I do it all the time. Again, when you go back and you watch streamed games, if you watch just I highly recommend people just record games in general, or if you play online, like, have some sort of something where you can go back and rewatch it.
Hmm.
You'll catch mistakes. You will get better by watching yourself. Even games you win, especially games you win, go back and watch and see if you could have done something differently. Um, See, like, what, was this turn to ink really the correct decision? Could I have waited to ink that? Was questing here correct? Could I have waited to quest? Um, it's little things. Little things will win or swing matches very quickly, especially in a game like this where we don't have instant interaction cards. You can't do anything on your opponent's turn. So, really nailing down the sequencing, um, and if there could have done, if you could have done any other option, like
Hmm.
walking through those decision trees and seeing what could have, would have maybe happened while you're doing it. Um, and number three, don't be afraid to change up card counts in your decks. Throw in some tech cards for potential matchups that you're seeing. Um, and just see how it works out. See where things work, see where they don't. If you're testing out a card for the first time, I would highly recommend putting in 4 copies of it just to see if I drew it here, would it have mattered? If I didn't draw it here, was it something that like if this was any other card, would it have been impactful?
Hmm.
Um, don't be afraid to like skew with the numbers of your deck while you're testing for the fear of like, oh well, consistency. Well, you don't know if a tech card's going to work if you don't see it.
Yeah.
So having max copies, max opportunities to actually see it while you're testing matters. Also, while you're testing, you can do things like you can curate hands. So you can just start off with like, okay, well, if I had these 7 cards at the beginning of the game, what does the game look like in 3 to 4 to 5 turns?
Hmm.
Against different matchups. Like if I'm playing against Amber Steel and I have these 7 cards, what does it look like if they have theoretically the best possible hand they could have, right? Um, just go down those decision trees and have a plan for what you expect you're going to be running into. Have at least turns 1 through 4 mapped out on the play and on the draw for your expected matchups.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting to see how much of an impact that makes, like being able to predict like the matchups, what the meta is and what you can expect in an event to be able to play your own deck better. There's a lot of people that I talk to that I think it was, I keep coming back to him, but J Bomb, he's got his channel where it's the Alter Academy. And that's literally what they do. They talk through those opening cards, the opening hands. It's like, okay, you're playing Amber Steel, you're going to go against, Amber Emerald or something. Here's what you want to pay attention to. Here's what you want to draw, and want to try to get in your hand to have the most success going into the game. And it's amazing how much how much of an impact like just that first mulligan and everything makes on the rest of the game. You know, you think, oh, I just I'll get my curve, I'll do the 1 2 3 4 or whatever. But sometimes it really matters which 1 2 3 4 you've got in your hand to be able to compensate for, especially some of the faster meta decks and everything. So I'm curious.
Oh well,
So
sorry, I think I was muted for a second.
oh no, go
but
ahead.
but no, that's absolutely something that I don't think every person walks through for your expected matchups. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people just kind of think, oh, well, this is what my deck's trying to do in general. In every game, they try to do that.
Yep.
But on the play and on the draw matters, and the matchups really, really matter. It can change what you ink, what you don't ink, what you play when, what you hold for an answer for a potential card to come down. Just walk through those decision trees. Like I encourage everybody to do it.
Yep. So how many times do you think you average on like practicing with the deck before you take it to a competitive event?
I probably don't take it to a competitive end if I don't have at least 100 matches on it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, that's a lot of games, I have to say. As somebody who is not highly competitive kind of person. And I'm sure, like I said, having the team around you really helps to be able to get those reps
Yes.
in. But yeah, that's it really amazes me talking to competitive folks how much work they put in, because it y'all make it look easy, I have to say. It's like you watch these replays and you're like, oh yeah, I totally, that's the line, I know what the line is and everything, but we don't get to see the stuff inside your head that you're thinking through. It's like thinking, five turns ahead, to be able to play what you have in your hand right now, to be able to compensate for what they've already played and what they might have left in their hand. And there's all those little decisions that we're not privy to. And so just watching play and everything, it's just like, oh yeah, I totally would have played that. It's like, well yeah, but why you don't have that same level of concentration and experience that comes with, I'm sure, playing at least 100 games with a deck. So
Well, and even with that, there are times where I mean, everybody makes mistakes, right?
yeah.
You can even talk to Tiago, talk to Sailor, talk to any high level player who's performed even better than I have at events, right? Sky. Sky's gone to events when he was playing Infinity events. He brought a Diablo deck and he missed Diablo triggers like 7 times throughout an event. Like it happens, right? Like
Yep.
nobody's perfect. Little things like that happens. But the hope is that when you put in the reps and you see these things over and over again, that when you have it happen in person, the muscle memory will kick in. You'll be like, oh, okay, well, this is what happens here. This is what happens here. If they do this,
Mm-hmm.
this is I do this. Um, and then just really paying attention to cards that you see from your opponent over the course of the match um, can just drastically change what cards you value in your list.
Yep, definitely. It's, and I think Attack of the Vine has introduced so many different kinds of. I mean, I know we got a couple of new mechanics and everything, but it seems like it's, especially with rotation, it's kind of like really shifted, where decks are. We kind of got dogs is kind of like gone by the wayside a little bit. I mean, it's still kind of there, but we've got a lot of interesting things that are coming out of this meta, and it's only a week or so. I guess maybe a week and a half ish, something like that. Is there anything that you're really seeing that is something that you're really interested in, or you think is going to be like a really strong contender for one of those higher level meta decks?
I mean, I think we're in a really, really healthy spot right now. There's a lot that's viable. I think there's 2 to 3 variants of Amethyst Steel. There's 2 to 3 variants of Amber Emerald. Um, Different versions within those versions. You're seeing Amber Amethyst take a rise. You're seeing Ruby Amethyst come out and take a rise. Amber
Yeah.
Ruby's done the same thing. We're seeing Emerald Steel, Amber Steel, basically anything plus steel is
Yeah.
taking off
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
doing, and you're able to do something relevant with it. I'm probably, like I said, leaning a lot towards Amethyst, Amber Amethyst.
Mhm.
That's what I'm resonating a lot with right now. It just kind of feels correct. But I've put a lot of reps into Amber Emerald Control. I think that deck is also incredibly strong. You can do very powerful things with Circle of Life. Um,
Mhm.
but in a week or two, we might see something else change things up. Like
Yeah.
we were kind of under the opinion that Amber Steel was falling a little bit in the tier list, and then we see it take second place at the CCQ with a very serious shot
Yeah.
of winning going to game three. With a BB, shout out to him. He's doing like just kind of showing us all like, no, Amber Steel's still a force to be reckoned with. Um, I don't know. I think we're in a much healthier spot than we have been in a very long time. Some people find it kind of frustrating because when the meta is as wide as it is right now, it's hard to target events. It's hard to
Mhm.
bring something and say, oh, well, I'm most likely to see these things. Um, but I think just from a player aspect, it's in a much healthier spot than we've had for the last 2 sets.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I think, and a lot of that I feel like has to do with the rotation, and we lost a lot of those like staples that people were using in those decks that really, especially the last, 2 or 3 set, like the meta for them. It seems like we saw a lot of the same kinds of decks. We saw a lot of variations on those decks, but now that they've lost some of those key cards, it seems like they're starting to fall off a little bit. But it's always interesting to me to see when a new set comes out, especially after rotation, to see people trying to like fit the pieces back together. Like they lost a couple of cards from their favorite deck, and so now they're trying to like supplement with some of the cards that they got from Attack of the Vine or Wilds Unknown or something like that. um, I'm interested to hear your opinion on like whether you think it's better to just kind of like go with what the meta is kind of leading with, or if it's more of like this deck and just kind of modify it a little bit to kind of match what has currently come out in other sets.
So rotation's always weird because the format that you were playing doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so the decks that people were comfortable on, it's very likely that you just can't play that deck anymore. Um, but I will say, once you find something that you resonate with, that you like, that you enjoy, I would personally say like run that over what is considered meta.
Hmm.
Whatever deck you feel you can pilot at 100%, through the entirety of an event, you will do better than a deck that might be more powerful on paper, but you're only going to pilot it like 60-70% through the entire event, or are more prone to make mistakes. A list that you're really comfortable on, that you know the ink patterns, you know what answers you have for whatever, you can recite your 60 by heart,
Yeah.
that you're going to see so much more success. I mean, you can just look at Humble, for instance. He has been an Amber Ruby truist since set 3,
Yeah.
and he has told everybody the second that Amber Ruby is what we consider to be tier 1, like, I'm taking down an event. And first CCQ he does it. He brings Amber Ruby and he wins. So he
Yep.
stomps everybody in his way.
Yeah, and incidentally, that deck is really fun. I tried it out the other day, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I get it. But
I
we wouldn't have
understand.
it without some of the like the toys and stuff that came in, and it was pretty fun, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have Amber Ruby control if we didn't have Amber Ruby toys last
Yeah,
set, which is
yeah,
another deck that Humble pioneered and continued to believe in.
yeah. Yeah, I remember I kind of I tried it out early on. I think it was like when he put out one of his first versions of it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then I started like watching the progression. It's really interesting with a lot of the highly competitive players. It's not just like I'm going to put a deck out and I'm satisfied with it. It's more of like as you go along, as you put those reps in, you kind of see what works, what doesn't. And I think that's a lot of players trying to shift to that kind of mentality to be able to say, I've put in enough reps with this deck. I see where the gaps are, and to be able to mentally like go back through cards or think about like look at other decks and try to figure out how to compensate for those gaps, and start filling stuff in and filtering stuff out. And I think that's kind of one of those things that it just takes time, you know. Like I mean, you've been playing. I didn't even ask. What set did you start off in? First chapter or?
I started the first chapter.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So you've been playing for a while. So you kind of, and you brought some of that experience from the other game, the games or whatever. Um, so you kind of have an understanding of this is what a deck needs to do. This is how it needs to function. But I think trying to develop that muscle is such a key thing, and it can be pretty hard for a lot of people. So do you have any tips for like if somebody is working with a deck and they're trying to figure out what the best way is to, okay, what's not working, what's working, how can I compensate for that kind of stuff? I know it's highly subjective to the deck, but I didn't know if you had any like kind of high level advice for that.
So what we've done, if we're testing in paper, um, if you have a card that you aren't sure, or a slot that you're not sure what it needs to be, what we've done is we'll take a card and just put it face down. Like, we'll just say, like, show the back of a card and like put it in the sleeve. Like,
Hmm.
all right, this can be one of 3 cards. So when I draw it, it can be one of these 3 cards. And as you're playing games, as you're running through things, you draw it and you be like, okay, here, what would benefit me in this situation? What would be something that wouldn't be as impactful? And you just kind of cycle through those options that you predetermined. And after a few games, then you're like, okay, well, then in this slot, it's more than likely that this card that we're talking about will be useful.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's one of the other couple of options. But that's something that can like be fairly free flow. That way you don't have static lists or things like that. You can always, like, in testing, just be like, okay, what is this slot possibly? Because there's been a lot of times we're debating on like the last 2 to 3 cards, like what should they be, what would be impactful, and that's what we have to do, and just see if it comes up, see when the moments happen. And I mean, honestly, most of the time it becomes glaringly obvious, like
Yeah.
what belongs in the slot and what's just kind of cute. But
Yeah.
um yeah, like, try that out, see if it works for you.
Interesting. Honestly, I'd never heard that before. Thinking through like options as you're playing. That's kind of a cool idea, because there are so many cards that like, we'll get a card in a new set and then it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's this action, but on a body. Or we'll get something that is like not as good as something else, like a previous card, like it's really close, but maybe it's inkable and it costs less this time, and to be able to find those right balances and to find those options is it's a really cool idea. I appreciate you sharing that, because it's not something that I've heard like in doing like research and stuff for improving on the competitive side. That's a really cool technique, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you've been a part of Team Maelstrom for a while now. And besides like the play testing angle of it, to be able to have somebody kind of built in to where you can, just hop on Discord or, coordinate some times. I think you said you have testing nights that are like Tuesday or what, I forget what you said.
We don't have a static night.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
whenever we can make it work.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But outside of having like that built-in kind of testing community, more or less, what do you find is one of the best parts about being like a part of an organized team?
So we obviously we get along really well. We are what I would consider to be a family. I mean, genuinely, everybody on the team I've spent a significant amount of my life with over these past few years. Um, so there's always that, just a support system when I
Hmm.
feel like I need it. But apart from that, we have the Maelstrom Discord. Anybody who supports the Maelstrom Discord, we have a paid section of it. They can come and they can see any of the deck lists we're working on, talk with us directly, ask us questions, um, see if we can refine their lists or just watch back gameplays and things like that. Um, any of that money gets put towards team Airbnbs for bigger events, mainly DLCs and things like that. Um, so we can cover those things with us.
Hmm.
And also from the organized play side of things, we're sponsored by Heavy Play now.
Yep.
Um, we wouldn't have that without the Maelstrom branding, being able to bring some sort of equity to them in being an organized team that does well and spends a lot of time on this game. Um, and yeah, I'm really fortunate and blessed to have the resources and people around me that I do. I genuinely believe I have some of the kindest human beings in the world that I'm very fortunate enough to call a teammate, and we're just growing every day. Um, each one of us has our own individual accolades. Each one of us has our own brand within the community and does things.
Hmm.
Like Sailor and Wonder, for instance, have their own discords and communities and things that they do, and we highly encourage people to go and support people individually. Somebody puts out a guide, like, go support that, go see what information they have out, and we don't take any portion of that. That's completely on the individual, because we don't feel it's right to kind of dip into somebody's work that they've done for themselves.
Yeah.
um, but there is a way you can support either the individual or the team itself if you can't pick your favorite. Um, but yeah, all that aside, just the things that I've been afforded by being on the team, be it through the heavy play sponsorship or be it some monetary things, like the covering Airbnbs for DLCs. Um, Sometimes would have been the make or break between me being able to make it to an event or not making it to an event.
Yep. All right. Cool. So I'm curious, you mentioned the Airbnbs, like everybody's staying there. Um, are there any like pre-event rituals that y'all follow? Do you like all go out to dinner the night before? Or, I know you're probably pretty heads down testing, but I didn't know if there was anything kind of like a team kind of activity that y'all do.
So a lot of the time we just it's kind of a funny one, but we pick a song that's like the event song or the weekend song, and it
Hmm.
can be anything. It's just whatever happens to pop up and be catchy first. Um, we swung everything from, oh gosh, like some random pop song to a cover of a heavy metal song, like just whatever somebody on their phone or like on a plane or in a car ride that somebody catches, and like if it's just an earworm that they can't get rid of, we'll just
Hmm.
listen to it on repeat all weekend, and it kind of becomes our thing, like our mantra, I guess you'd say.
Okay. All right. So what was the last one? Do you remember?
Oh, what is the name of that song? If you give me 5 seconds, I can Google it.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me to see, because I've talked to a couple other people that have been on, competitive teams before, and and they all kind of have like this, whether it's like just going out to dinner or just hanging out at an Airbnb or something, to have that kind of mental like, okay, we're here for the competitive event. We're kind of like, shifting out of normal life mode and getting into that, that kind of headspace.
So our last song was "End of Beginning." I think the artist name is it's DJO. I'm not sure how
Mm,
exactly you pronounce it, but
okay.
yeah, that was the one. That was the earworm for the weekend.
All right. Cool. Cool. Oh, actually, side note, do you still play in a band, or was it that you played in a band before?
I played in a band. I was still in the band in the early days of Lorcana,
Okay.
but then when I moved for my new position for my job to Pennsylvania, that's when I kind of set that off to the side because all of my
Okay.
friends and my bandmates that I did music with lived in Nashville, Tennessee. I was relatively close to there, and when I was 12 hours away, all of a sudden I was like, well, don't know that I can devote the time to
Yeah.
this that I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough. Fair enough. Sorry, I just, I had that in my notes and I was like, oh yeah, I got to mention that real quick.
No,
And
that's
it
fine.
was it was pretty heavy metal stuff, right?
Yeah, so the last band I toured in, I've toured in three bands in my life.
Okay.
The first one, well, this last one that I toured in, it was a band called Divisive. It was
Mm,
what you would label as deathcore, I guess you would say.
okay. Which is so funny to me. Like I was talking to my wife earlier, and I was like, yeah, when I was doing the research for this interview, I started going back and looking through your Instagram and everything, and it was like, the band stuff, and then all of a sudden it was Lorcana, and that was it. And I was like, talk about like a 360 kind of change, but
Well, so it's the fun part, just as a side note to that, it's
yeah.
not even really a 360 change. A lot of people have just kind of this perception in their head of people who play in those types of bands, like, oh,
Hmm.
they're really moody or hardcore. And it's like, brother, at my merch table, I would bring a Super Smash Brothers setup to every event with a sign that was, if you can beat me, you get anything off of the stand. But
Hmm.
also, like, everybody that plays metal just nerds, man. Like we sit around and like there were people that like on tour would bring Magic the Gathering cards because that's what you did in your off time,
Yeah.
or we'd just be talking about video games or playing video games, talking about Final Fantasy, or like somebody would bring a mobile hotspot and a laptop so they could play World of Warcraft in the van while we're going from venue to venue. You'll find the biggest crossover between like just nerds and metal than you'd ever imagine.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, from the outside I was just like, oh, okay, all right, cool, but also, you've got the Disney background, right? It's not like you're this one faceted person who it's just about the band, just about that kind of stuff. You've got the Disney love in the background, and so it's like a natural transition. But
Well,
um
that and like if you go back and look at some of the early covers I was doing like requests for people on Instagram just to give me an excuse to practice and do whatever.
yeah,
All of it was just video game stuff.
nice, nice. Hey, there's some video game music that is just absolutely amazing these days,
Yes.
and even like just covers of it and stuff is just, yeah, it's crazy. So,
Go listen to like the Final Fantasy IX soundtrack or
yeah.
anything from Hollow Knight or Silk Song, like just
Hmm.
absolutely beautiful tracks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm one of those people that like I can't have like talking or, lyrics and songs and stuff in the background while I'm working. And so I actually listen to a soundtracks channel. And the majority of them are not, there's not spoken words and stuff. But it's one of the ones where people can pick what songs are played. And so, you'll have a movie soundtrack, then you'll have a video game soundtrack, and then, and so it's nice to have those, but sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes it sounds like a cinematic soundtrack, from like a movie and everything. And the fact that they have like full on awards for video game music and everything these days is just, it's mind blowing to think about where we came from with, Mario and like the little 8-bit kind of stuff, to see it
That still
evolve
is
over time.
fantastic.
Well, it
It's still
is. Yeah,
fantastic when you go back and listen to it. The
it
things that they
is.
were able to do in the 8-bit days are just mind boggling. But
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Really pushing the technology, and and to see how quickly they adapted too. It's like as soon as they got a little bit higher power systems, they were like, all right, we're all in. We're going to make the music a little bit better. And,
Where's the string section, everybody? We're putting
yeah,
it in here.
the string section. Yeah. In the 16-bit world, it was not quite exactly a string section, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We went to, with my kids, we went to one of those, like the video games live things. And they have the projection where they have the video game going and everything. And then they have the full orchestra playing in front of you. And it is wild to me that, like you step back and you're like, they're playing music for a video game, but it's like a full on composition, like amazing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to think about the work that they put in on that kind of stuff is just, it's absolutely incredible that they have full on composers writing this stuff now. So
It's all amazing.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So tangent over. Um, so I'm curious, looking forward to Attack of the Vine and some of the upcoming competitive events and everything. Is there anything that really stands out to you that would be something that people should pay attention to, or that you think is unique about? I mean, I know, like I said, we've got some extra, some new mechanics and everything. But is there anything that you think people should be paying attention to that maybe they aren't, or hasn't been as apparent so far? Like, in the week and a half that we've been in it.
I mean, I don't know that we're going to see something that's just truly shocking.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to come out and surprise a bunch of people. But I think if you're going to events, you really need to just be planning for what I would consider to be like the big four right now, which would be any Eleanor deck. So Amber, Emerald.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just able to take over the board really quickly. Quest 20. The Amber Emerald control lists, the core of all of them are either Circle of Life to get out the Prince Philip combo
Mm-hmm.
or Under the Sea. So having a plan for those. Um, the Amethyst Steel variants, so that would be like the shift with Maleficent Diablo or the bots version with Syndrome and the big bots. And then the fourth pillar, I believe, are kind of like your mid range or steel decks. So that'd be Amber Steel, which game plan can vary a little bit, but right now is fairly straightforward. And we're going to play singers. We're going to challenge down your guys. We're going to play a draw engine in either Pleakley or Ariel to continue to get value, or our Amethyst variants. So there's Ruby Amethyst, there's Amber Amethyst. Anything that just has that game plan of I'm going to play bodies and I'm going to exert your stuff and I'm going to pop a guidebook. I'm going to play a Demona. I'm going to play Dumbo. These are going to be my draw engines.
Yep.
Those would be kind of like the pillars of the format right now. So have a game plan in mind for those types of archetypes.
Okay. All right. And I know, I think it was Humble and R&B. They both have guides out for their respective decks that they've been
Yes.
working on over on Metafy, I assume.
Yes, they both have it on Metafy. You can
Okay.
also subscribe to the Maelstrom Discord, and any subscribers to the Maelstrom Discord get access to those guides.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure that the link to that is in the notes for this interview as well. So okay, so real quick before we finish up, I'm curious about your perspective on something that has really hit the game and the community hard recently. And some people have different perspectives because they played different games before and they've seen this kind of thing. But I'm interested in your perspective in what you think the huge influx of the collector market. I won't, reference it by a derogatory term, but the collector market has had, on the supply of the cards, on the game itself, how much it's changed, like the community aspect, because we've hit, the last set or two, especially with the introduction of the Toy Story stuff. There's been such a huge influx of those people. And it seems like it is impacting the game, but I wanted to get your opinion on it and see, like, from your perspective, what you thought.
So my short answer in the long term, it's a good thing. My long answer is we've lived through periods of this before.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who was around in set 1, set 2, set 3 remembers it was impossible to get access to physical cards. You could not find it in any LGS. You could not find it in any box store. And if you did, it was either double or triple MSRP.
Yeah.
I, at the time, was lucky enough to be working near one of the largest game stores in America called Through the Decades in Kentucky. And they had an influx of Lorcana product, but I was paying like $300 a box
Oh.
for just to play the game.
So like it is now. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Obviously, like, it died down for a little bit after the second and third set came out. People were like, oh, okay, well, the big money cards really aren't paying off the way I thought. The only one that really held value was the set one Elsa
Mm-hmm.
Enchanted. um, but now there's been this resurgence of people who play Pokemon have kind of come back into the game. And they're like, oh wait, no, now there's this even rarer version called Iconics, and there's very few of those printed per set. So people are just buying up all the sealed product.
Mm-hmm.
In the long term, it's a good thing because it's going to make singles very, very affordable for your average player who wants to play cards. You're not going to be seeing $50 copies of legendaries like we did in Fable when Dumbos were just skyrocketing, or even
Yeah.
in Winter Spell when Angels were skyrocketing. The more sealed products that's bought and opened, the cheaper on average singles are going to be. So your average person won't have to struggle to actually afford to play the game. I want to see a world where we are a Pokemon esque game where you can play any world's competitive deck and there's a version of it that's $20
Yeah.
because there's so many different alternate arts. I love that there's going to be more alternate arts introduced in the game, more shiny versions, because then the people who want to have those variants and blinged out decks can. But then people like me who want to play just like a base version, base rarity point of the deck, like the cost effectiveness comes down significantly.
Yep.
I know in the meantime, it can get a little bit more frustrating to people who maybe are newer or haven't lived through these spells of a physical TCG. But these are just kind of the signs of a thriving game. Also, when things like this happen, like the Disney Spring drop for the Princess boxes, it makes it so Disney has to pay attention to
Yep.
Lorcana. It's all of a sudden not this thing that they can put on the back burner and think, oh, well, that's just going to be there passively. It's something that if they do any in park event, they all of a sudden have to bring in more staff. They have to bring in
Mm-hmm.
security. They have to put more into it because they know if they don't, they're going to have these groups of people that come and just bombard and bum rush everything
Yeah.
and just
Like
create
London.
more. Yes, like London.
Yeah.
Like, while I really feel for the people that had negative experiences, I think in the long run it's going to cause us to have significantly better experiences than we could ever hope for, because all of a sudden it's this thing that's bigger than what our small community was
Yeah.
perceived to be. All of a sudden it's this thing that Disney has to put some resources behind, and all of a sudden maybe Ravensburger gets more support for these more official events. We get more product printed because they expect more things to sell out and just in such high demand that if they don't contain it properly, then they're going to cause issues.
Yeah.
So in the short term, yes, I know that it's been a very negative perception, but in the long term, I think it's really, really going to benefit us.
Yep. Yeah, honestly, I totally agree. I know we've kind of lived in this lovely little bubble, for the past, couple of sets and everything, to where we can get our sealed product and, we can kind of get what we want from, even the big box stores and stuff. But it's kind of like this next level of, okay, the game has actually made it, because I think after like the first couple of sets, it was kind of like hit and miss. They printed too much Inklands and but then like once you got to a certain point, it seemed like around set 4 or 5, it was like, oh, okay, this game's sticking around. It's actually going to be something. And I feel like this is kind of that next step up, right? It's the next step of, yes, Disney has to pay more attention to it. Yes, there are more people that realize it's a thing, and it's not just the people that are buying cards just to do the reselling and everything. I think it's also bringing in, like you're saying, it's bringing in a lot of other people that may have not had exposure to the TCG before, or any TCG before, and to have them be like, oh, okay, so this is a thing. Like, I think the lines at Disney Springs, they like showed up on the news, and like there was somebody that I was talking to the other day, and they don't even know that I play Lorcana. And they were like, "Yeah, did you see that crazy thing that happened at Disney Springs?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did. I was like
It's
keeping up with it, but
it's a wonderful thing to see the thing you love grow exponentially.
yep,
Um, the hardest part of any TCG, especially new TCG, the hardest part of its lifespan is to make it through its first year. Well, we
hmm
hit that mark. Now we're like, all right, what's next? And we're constantly hitting the milestones of something that's going to be, and this is something Liam and I talk about in Coin all the time, to be the 5, 10, 15, 20
yep,
year game that we see in things like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering. We have the IP that is strong enough to do it. We just need the backing and the interest to make it happen. And now we're seeing the waves of that, of like, oh, collectors outside of the game and people that have never heard of Lorcana before are hearing about these exclusive products and are thinking, I need to get these things because I know that they're going to make money.
yep,
While that's not the mindset of all of us that play the game, it's a healthy aspect to have, because that means that we are going to continue on that upward trend. The competitive side is going to grow, the collectivity of it's going to grow, and the alternate art opportunity is going to grow. This is
yep,
going to be something that Ravensburger and Disney continue to put out because they see that demand is so astronomically higher than they imagined it would be.
yep. Yeah, I think that's one of the things, like the recurring theme that is really reinforcing about the future of the game and the longevity of it, is that it seems like there are certain points where they constantly underestimate how popular the game is, how many people want to play the game. You've got DLCs that still sell out in like 30 seconds, which
I mean,
is
the D23
absolutely insane.
CCQ, the D23 CCQ, 30 seconds,
Yeah,
if that, all the
yeah.
tickets were gone. And like I was talking to JDZ the week before, he was like, dude, no shot that sells out. I just don't see that event being something that, D23 participants go to. 30 seconds, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like the demand is there. The It's almost feverish at this point for
Yeah.
like core side events. Infinity was kind of a dip, and I think that was an experiment that they were trying to go with to see what interest there was in alternative formats.
Mm-hmm.
But every core event that has gone up, be it a DLC or a CCQ, just immediately just
Yeah.
filled.
Yeah.
And I only think that's going to continue to be the case going forward,
Yeah.
especially into season 3.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm glad that they may not have as many DLCs like this one. We only got like 3 of them. But hopefully they'll expand them out a little bit more in the next season. But to be able to have the CCQs and everything kind of supplement that, to be able to have those larger events and those more competitive events that aren't necessarily, oh, we have to wait for a DLC, that's coming in 6 months or whatever, however far out it is. To have that kind of stuff definitely reinforces that as well, right? So you have these local events and people are like, oh, there's a big Lorcana event, that's coming up, and it's not just set champs, it's something actually bigger. It gives people a little bit more of a like a local kind of thing that they can go to and still feel that competitive kind of nature and feel the overall community around it as well. I think that's one of the other things, that these big events bring with them, is that it's not just about the competitive play. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that go just for that, but there's also a lot of people that go to just kind of hang out and be around people that love the game and just, enjoy the community aspect of it. And if you just limited that to the DLCs and you didn't have that kind of thing a little more local for people, I don't feel it would contribute as much to the growth of the game. But I'm really glad that they kind of shifted to that kind of mentality where they do have those, the qualifiers and everything. Even if it's not like the full arc of like from set champs to qualifier to worlds or whatever, nationalism worlds. But I have no doubt we'll get there someday, honestly.
I absolutely believe that's something we'll see coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about a game that's not 5 years old yet. If you go back and look at like the timeline of Pokemon, it started off kind of similarly, where things were lower in grassroots, and over time it's grown to. If you pay attention to their world circuit, they have like an arena with a floor that shows the
Yeah.
Pokemon they're playing, that shows the moves as they do it. Um, yeah, but it's taken 20 plus years to get there, right?
Yeah.
Um, we'll get there with time. And even right now, our events and our production levels have significantly increased
Oh
just over
yeah.
the course from season one and throughout season two. So I can only imagine in season three we're just looking at even bigger and better things.
Yep. Yep. I look forward to it. I know, I know they kind of have had a couple of missteps along the way, but I mean, that happens, right? With any game, especially for a company like Ravensburger that does not, it's not a TCG company. They do, puzzles and board games and stuff. So this is like, new territory for them as well. I know they've got a lot of people that have worked on, these kind of games before, but it's a whole different kind of atmosphere with, you know, not only is it a TCG that they haven't really produced before, but it's also got the whole Disney aspect that they have to like worry about all the IP restrictions and and all the Disneyness of it that comes along with making something like this. So um I have the utmost respect for the folks that create this game and work on, the art, work on the mechanics of it and everything. It's yeah, it's amazing to me to understand the work that goes into, even just putting a couple of these cards together. I love watching they usually, I think they've done it for the last two sets where they do like the little featurette of one of the cards and they talk about, the art development of it, the mechanic development of it and everything. And it kind of gives that backstory. I'm one of those people that I would love to see that for like as many cards as possible.
Oh
So
yeah, I think if they put out like a long running series, it would
yeah.
just be a smash hit on YouTube or Instagram.
Oh yeah.
But I'm the same way. I love the just the design aspect and how we end up at the place we end up with the printed cards as opposed to like, oh well, how did it start and how did the testing work out and how did the flavor of all these things and the story of it go.
Yep.
um, but we're also in a very um, unique space for that given the IP we're working with.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just it's a magical game,
Yeah.
for lack of a better
That
way to
little
put it.
little splash of Disney magic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, definitely. No. Well, hey Logan, I've had a great time talking with you. I do want to wrap up with the same four questions that I ask everybody. It's always interesting and enlightening for me to hear the answers to these kind of things. So, all right. So first off, your favorite ink and card right now, and it can be card art, can be cards you like to play, any of them above.
Oh man. I guess. Wow, that's a little bit difficult.
I mean,
um,
we don't have that many cards to pick from, right? There's only like, 1,500 of them now. So,
so I guess if I could say my favorite ink, it would probably be amber. Um, just I think it's the strongest ink this set by far.
yeah.
But as far as favorite cards to play, I think it's something simple like something like Guidebook or Demona, something that just like that just gives me the ability to refill my hand resources and do something. And there aren't a lot of answers in the game that stop you from using those tools.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. And let's see. Next question. Favorite Disney movie and why? And it doesn't have to
Favorite
be just one, but you can.
Oh no, like favorite Disney movie of all time, I think would be Treasure Planet. Something I grew up
I
with.
figured. Yeah.
The soundtrack for the movie is absolutely fantastic. The lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls did like the main theme for Jim Hawkins. I was always a Treasure Island fan kid growing up when I had to read the book. So making the movie itself and Treasure Planet with the sci-fi aspect of it was really really cool.
Yep.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a fantastic Disney movie.
Yep. All right. Cool, cool. Okay, next up, not really a question, but give a shout out to your favorite LGS or LGSs.
So my new LGS that I currently have the privilege of going to every Friday night would be Cool Stuff Games.
Mhm.
We stream our locals every Friday night on Colors Laws Twitter. Uh, I say Twitter, Twitch, on our Twitch channel.
Social
Fantastic
media.
community.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic community. I'm here with R&B and Humble, so we go there every week along with Dr. Lore. He also helps set
Hmm.
up most of the production and things like that. Um, and then that, as well as Dex and Dice, another one of our local stores that we go to. Um, great stores, fantastic communities. I'm blessed to be around them.
Cool. Very cool. And I'll make sure and get all the links and everything to put in the show notes for those. All right. And last but not least, tell people where they can find you, your team, your content, all that kind of good stuff.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Xenulous. My name is down here in the left-hand corner. So you just add that, you'll find me everywhere. Or you can find me and everybody else on Team Malestrom on our Discord. Links to that and all of my Twitter and Instagram bios as well. We spend an egregious amount of time weekly there talking to people, being available. Significantly easier to reach out to me on Discord than any other platform, honestly. So yeah.
Cool. Very cool. All right. I'll get all those links as well. So yeah, thank you again, Logan. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you around the community.
Yeah, I appreciate all the questions and appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was so great to finally get to catch up with Logan while he's between, co-hosting on Monday nights and all the multiple competitive events he participates in. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you like the show, make sure to subscribe, rate, or like the show on your platform of choice. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can find us on all the socials at Inkwell Lounge, or you can find a full list of links at inkwelllounge.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.